Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is G and Scorpio. We're going to talk about your May 2023. So let's jump in. And before we go into the astrology of May, we're going to go over a little bit about your rulers. And we're doing this because we have an event coming up in May. And it has everything to do with your rulers, right? And so ancient astrology believes that just Mars rules you, Scorpio. And current astrology, Western astrology, they recognize Pluto. Most of them recognize both Pluto and Mars as being the ruler of the sign of Scorpio. So I'm bringing this up because when we understand Mars and when we understand Pluto, then we have a little bit greater understanding of basically all the degrees of our being, right? So we all know about Mars. You've been hearing me talk about it like for a very long time, more than 6, 7, 8 months now. Mars has been very prominent just in our everyday world. And so we know that Mars is our appearance. It's our physical body. But it's just like a lot more than that, right? Mars is that warrior, that one that's going to head into the battle and not going to have a problem, not going to back down from any battle, may even instigate battles or fights and start stuff, right? Because it was born to fight. It was born to stand up, to not give up, and to go at it and to go head first, to not see down the road where what they're currently getting themselves into, like where they may end up and the consequences of that. It's a really typical thing because you think about a warrior going into battle. They're like, they're single-eyed almost, where they're just focused on the fight, being the last one standing. And even if they're not standing, they're going to still be fighting, right? Even if they get knocked down, they're going to still come right back up and they're going to come back, even if they're shot 3 or 4 times. And we've heard of people going through these sort of experiences in their life, right? And so we often think of the Phoenix rising associated with the sign of Scorpio because of that reason, that Pluto energy gives it that ability to go where you seemingly can't go with your physical body, because it would be like Hades, death, like the unknown, like your physical body supposedly dies, right? It has this unbelievable tragic experience, and somehow out of the ashes, they rise up. And that is you. That is you. Through all adversity, you somehow make it. You somehow come back from what looked like death, a dark place, like there was no hope possible type of thing, like, oh my God, they're gone. And somehow, think of a movie you've seen where you see like the character hanging off at the edge of the cliff and you see the fingertips, and then all of a sudden the fingertips are gone, right? And you're looking over the edge of the cliff and there's nobody there. And it's like, oh my God, they're gone. They're dead. Remember that Indiana Jones movie? The one where Sean Connery was in it with him? What was the name of that one? Oh, anyway, I loved the rapport between them in that movie. It was really awesome. Tell me the name, put it in the comments below. So anyway, remember, like, he was like Junior, and it was like, oh my God, he's gone. And in the movie, as a watcher, we're thinking, come on now, no way, And so they let them have their moment of thinking he's dead. And the sadness, the regret, the sorrow that his dad was feeling, right? And then all of a sudden, some way, somehow, here comes Indy up over the side of the cliff, clawing, scratching, pulling at whatever he could, and gets one leg up, and he somehow is alive and okay, right? So that might not be the best example, right? But for Scorpio energy, it's like you want to experience intense, deep, real stuff. And so sometimes it's almost as though, when we're either relating with people or even with ourselves, it's like we may find ourselves in scenarios where we're like, how did I get here? And like, why? And when we ask that question, we may realize there's not really a clear answer, because Scorpio energy is really deep. It goes deep. Now, remember, the Pluto aspect of Scorpio explains the depth of Scorpio energy. It talks about the Phoenix rising. The Mars aspect doesn't. The Mars is all about fight and not going to back down, and very impulsive and passionate and driven, where Pluto is that aspect of Scorpio energy where it's like, how did they do that? Like, that's almost like magic. It's mystical almost. Like, how did they go there, get that done, accomplish that? How did they come back against all odds? Right. And so Scorpio has that ability to go in some really deep, dark places. And it's like bizarre, even because we don't always understand it, depending upon who we are and what our other prominent signs are in our chart, right? And like what we most closely associate with. So if you're watching this video and you're watching because you are a Scorpio by birthday, meaning your month and your day says, hey, I'm a Scorpio, that is fine, because this still would apply to your sun, because a Scorpio birthday is a Scorpio sun sign. And so if you don't know your rising sign, I would highly recommend for you to please comment below and say, gee, I don't know my rising sign. Please help me out, and I will take care of you. I would do the best that I can for you. You get your birth digits to me, and I will find that for you. And if you want your chart, I'll get that to you. It's not a big deal. Okay. I'll do whatever I can. Now, when we go to Mars and Scorpio, and we're talking about them, and we're thinking about the depth and the deepness, I want to kind of stick with the Harrison Ford character and his dad, right? Because Indy was a fighter. Absolutely. His dad was a fighter. They were also researchers. Yes, he was an educator, but he was an unbelievable researcher. And what did he do? Right? He was digging, he was researching, like not only just material and intellectually, because zodiac, when we think of the zodiac and the sign that's like the super detective, that's Scorpio, because they're going to dig, it's like the rotor-rooter of the zodiac, we say. There's just this giant drill that can just go down and down and down and down and down. You know, the way the oil drills for oil and what comes up, right? Black gold, right? And so that is kind of like this great visual that I see for Scorpio energy, other than the Phoenix, that is like this bird that's on fire and that can somehow almost explode, because it's got a tragic element to it, right? Scorpio's got a very tragic element. Think about this. Soldiers, tragic, right? They go to war. Oh my God, they've been to hell and they come back. And it's like, wow, like, how do you do that? And how do you talk about it? Do they talk about it? How many of you have known, they had family or relatives who've gone to war, who've gone and seen war, right? And when they come back, how are they? And are they openly talking about what they saw, what they experienced, what they did, what they saw others do? Do they talk about that? It's like they go and they see the deepest, darkest, nastiest, dirtiest, unappealing, undesirable behavior that you would call it hell, right? And so that doesn't mean you are that person. It means you have the ability to go there, to experience, to witness, to somehow be a part of that kind of stuff. Okay. Now, this is going to be in varying degrees, depending upon lots of things in your chart. There's lots of Scorpios where this energy for them doesn't always have to be so freaking tragic. And then there's other Scorpios where they've just got like so many things, so many planets, asteroids, house cusp lines that line up in the Scorpio energy. And it's like the more that's there, the more intense, the more compounded that energy is, which means the more extreme the energy is and the experiences will be. Okay. So Scorpio is that, it's, be proud to be a Scorpio. Scorpio gets a bad rap 99% of the time. and even me here on the channel, when I talk about Mars, you normally don't hear me saying all the beautiful things about Mars energy, which is it's a leader. It can be very optimistic. It's got the get up and go, and it's good to have someone around who can be a fighter, because those are the people you want on your team. Those are the people where okay, we don't go up against them. We make sure they're on our team, right? Scorpios, right? Very private energy. Very private energy. Some would say secretive. And so it's got emotional depth that others may not comprehend or understand, or may not have the ability to go to. And Scorpio knows this. They already know it. You already know that about people you're connecting with, whether or not they can go there. And so you may have issues when you're meeting people where there's a sense of fake and falseness with them, because you are always someone who is tied in. You have your finger on the pulse of truth. And so you can pick up, like, your bullshit meter is really high. Okay. Because Pluto is about showing the truth. And many times the truth is under the rug or in the closet, and there's a bunch of shit on top of it, right? And so we don't know what's the source of the wound or the hurt, or just what's at the foundation here, but what's under the foundation. Scorpio, it's so freaking deep. It's not about the foundation of the home. It's what's under the foundation of the home. So many times we hear the word death. Absolutely. Death and dying associated with Scorpio for that reason. We're buried 6 feet under. Okay. And again, that can be an actual death or more of a metaphorical, symbolic death of an ending of a way of life, or an ending of the way I believe, or an ending of how things used to be. Okay. So it has a lot to do with the past and history and soul memory and your soul's history. Okay. And so many times when we experience something in this lifetime, it affects us in a way where we feel almost like an unbelievable, it's like anxiety. It's like a pressure on the chest. And we're like, okay, what the hell is that? Right. And you're thinking, like, when you have either a conversation or a communication or something happens and you feel it. But there could be times where, like, nothing is visually happening, or you're not aware of anything, like there's nothing obviously occurring, and you're like, okay, why is this happening? Because you've carried it over. It's there with you. It's there with you. Your soul, some believe the soul is within the body. Some believe the soul is like a carrier for the physical body, like it's actually on the outside of the body. So whatever, whether it's inside or outside, either way, your personality, who you are right now, is connected to it. And there's a constant communication, a feeling of a depth of emotions, and where contact is always happening. And so you're feeling what your soul already felt, the experiences that it's had. And so there's this depth that you have, and that you likely would demand of a partner or people that you would consider yourself close to. And it doesn't have to mean like, well, we both went to war or to battle, but you'll feel that resonating thing between your soul with these people. Okay. And it doesn't always mean that they had to have identical life experiences this time around, or however you understand that for yourself, because everybody has a different opinion. And I'm not here to say somebody's wrong or right. Okay. I'm trying to honor everybody's opinion in that and to work with it. So the depth is important because Mars and Pluto rule your sign, rule you if you're a Scorpio birthday. They rule you if you're a Scorpio rising, Scorpio ascendant. All right. And so now we're going to get to some of the energies from May. Okay. And the first thing up right at the beginning of the month is an eclipse. And it is in your sign, Scorpio. So before I go any further, if you have your chart and are you a Scorpio rising? Are you a Scorpio moon? Are you a Scorpio sun, which means you're Scorpio by birthday? Okay. Put it into the comments and I can help us. I can kind of add a little bit of information that you may not already have. And even if it's something that you already knew, at least you asked and you have that additional information. Okay. And for some of you, you may not know anything. I mean, I'm kind of treading this carefully because Scorpios just know stuff, extremely psychic energy because of that Pluto power being so intimately connected with your soul, but the souls of others that you come into contact with. Like when you relate to people, you want to do it soul to soul. That is Scorpio, soul to soul, soul, SOUL. Okay. Now, the eclipse is a lunar eclipse. And so we know lunar, meaning full moon, meaning it's a release and it's a let go. It's about shared values because that's Scorpio in general. So sometimes it's a partner, but it's our shared values, like our assets, things that we both own together. And then when that happens, especially if we're married and if there's like taxes due, we have to pay taxes sometimes. Scorpio energy can be blood bonds, like I'm going to inherit money possibly. Many times it's like the outtake though, because your opposite of you, Scorpio, is Taurus. And so it's understandably like this makes sense, right? Taurus is the magnet. It's magnetic. It's Venus. It's about how I'm going to receive. It's my money. It's my income. It's my love, which my desire. So it's magnetic. It's my desire. Like I want that. And so I want that. I get it because I want it. I work for it because I want it. Right. But Scorpio's opposite of that. So Scorpio, depending upon how it's placed in your chart, like where your Scorpio sun is in your chart, what house it's in, like this could be super beneficial for many of you. And for some of you, it can be difficult and rough, where it's like you don't feel like you're on the receiving end. You feel like you're more on the giving end, or you just can never attain anything or keep any money. Like it always seems like it's just going out, because this is incoming, this is outgoing. Okay. This is incoming Taurus. This is outgoing Scorpio. You follow? So an eclipse in Scorpio, releasing and letting go, doesn't have to just be about I'm releasing our material assets or our shared assets, although that is one of the things. It can be that, but it can also be I'm releasing and letting go of the past, like the trauma, the wounds. This is a wonderful time for healing, because that's what, healing, before we truly are healed, we have to be able to think and process and recognize that we have a hurt, that we have this pain, that we have this traumatic thing that's still within us, right? I had this unbelievable deep communication with a person on the channel the other day. And every time they communicate to me, every time they comment, and there's many of you that do this, but I like the comments that aren't fluff. I truly do, because that is soul to soul communication. And no, I'm not a Scorpio birthday, but I have a lot of other things in my chart where when I'm relating, it is absolutely soul to soul. Okay. So those are the most rewarding comments for me when it's comments like that, where we're talking about something of substance, something that is meaningful. That is Scorpio. It doesn't want to waste time talking about the damn weather. Okay, that's Scorpio energy. Most people describe it as being very intense energy, and it is very intense energy. Okay. So what else can this eclipse be? Well, we have to dissect the eclipse. So we already talked about Scorpio, and I gave you the meaning of Pluto and the meaning of Mars. What I didn't talk about on Pluto, well, I didn't use the word power. Okay. But obviously from what I've described about, you can be seemingly dead and then all of a sudden you're back in life and you're flying and you're doing well. Like that's power. That's soul power that comes through for you. It's not even dependent on the physical prowess of your own body, right? Mars. It's the combination. It's the 1-2 punch. It's Mars and Pluto working together, rules your sign. Again, you don't go to battle against a Scorpio. You go into battle with them on your side, right? So this energy also has something even more meaningful. And I said it, the word meaningful, and that's a key word for Pluto energy. Meaningful and purposeful power. I'm not here just to flaunt my power. It has a purpose. And Pluto demands that it is the best for the most involved. I know back in the day, we always used to say the highest and the best for all involved. Okay, that works too, but that is not always, from our different perspectives, pandemic, right? That is not always possible. There are so many different beings that we have to kind of recognize. And so what is the best for all involved? That's a hard place to find, isn't it? Right. So So we're still shooting for that goal, but it's got to be something where it's like this altruistic energy. Altruistic. So it's not just about my power. It's not just about me being in power so I can be, look down upon my subjects. No, because what will happen is your ruler Pluto will, yeah, you don't want to mess with your ruler. Okay. Pluto's the most powerful in the zodiac. Okay. So we kind of learn over time what our purpose is, and we learn how we can find meaningful, work and meaningful ways of communicating and meaningful relationships. And we find within those interactions, we find so much purpose in it, and we see what good it does for the others that we connect with. So there's this depth and there's this deep psychology associated with the sign of Pluto for that reason. Okay. So it's a release and it's an ending, and it's a recognition of the hurts and the wounds. It's a recognition, and it's the processing of it. And after the processing occurs, more and more of it is released. And so this is the lunar eclipse in Scorpio. And so this happens right at the beginning of the month of May for you. Okay. Happens for everybody, but because you're Scorpio, you're getting the first reading for May readings. So find out for sure where this is in your chart. All right. Find out what house it's in. Again, for those who are Scorpio birthdays, this could be in one of 12 houses. All right. And finding out which house it's in will absolutely tell you the where in your life you could expect this. Okay. Now, the degrees of this are 15 degrees of Scorpio. Okay. And so this matters for those of you that are keeping track and that are looking at your chart at home, and find out. And if you have questions, concerns, just comment to me and I will help you however I can. This has to do with the past. I know I've already talked about it because this is a South Node eclipse. Again, it's just more emphasis about releasing. The lunar eclipse, lunar, releasing the past. South Node, releasing the past. Releasing what is once considered like my superpower, right? So I used to be a really good fighter in other lifetimes or parallel lifetimes, however you understand that for you in your world, a time where you had to be that fighter. Like that's how you survived. That's how you made it. And so we're releasing the need to relate in a combative way or in a super assertive, maybe even aggressive manner, because we had to, and we've got so much experience at it. We realize we're getting to a place finally where we don't have to do it to that level. Okay. Where we can take it down a notch. And we do that by everything I already talked about. All right. So typically, if this is in your first house, your ascendant, Scorpio, find the degrees and see. This has a lot to do with your appearance, releasing something by how you appear. Maybe you aren't going to look like the warrior anymore. Maybe you're releasing that. Many times when we have an eclipse on that first house, the rising sign, we have changes that occur not only in the first house, but in the seventh house of partnerships, your Taurus energy. There can be changes here, right? And we've been having eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, right? Like the April eclipse, that 30 degrees, 29, 50 in Aries, that was really a 0 degrees of Taurus eclipse, your seventh house. Okay. Now, if something was new and something is beginning, we normally have to release and let go to have a new beginning. Okay. And so then that takes me to the next part of the month. We're in the middle of the month and we're kind of focused and really thinking about our values, who we value, what we value, my money in the bank, my tangible assets. Taurus energy is really, really highlighted in April and May, big time. Okay. It's a big highlight. And we all know the World Banks and all that fiasco in March, banks failing and whatnot. And I don't want to spend time talking about that here, but that is shared values. That is shared money. Scorpio energy, shared money, right? And some of that can be old money, like big money, because it's been around for a while, right? Scorpio energy, big money that's been around for a while. Okay. Power, old power, right? And so we see that with this focus on values, with this focus on money, it can also be self-worth and love and who you need or don't need as a partner any longer. Because remember, this eclipse is happening here. But when you have an eclipse, You pay attention to the point of the eclipse and the exact opposite point of the eclipse. This is in your 7th house. See if you have something in Taurus at 15 degrees. I'm going to give it an orb 2 degrees before and 2 degrees after. Okay. So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 degrees in Taurus and Scorpio for that matter, for that orb. All right. And so you definitely are releasing, you definitely are beginning. And many times this can not only be like relationships as far as partners and marriage, but it can be business partners. So sometimes when these eclipses happen, things at work and career and at home change. You follow? Sometimes those things happen. And for many of you, if you have something exact, you have already begun this process. So I'm just want to make this clear. I already got people reaching out and they're like, what's going on? And it's like, listen, you could very easily have already faced the most intense stuff already. That is a really good possibility. Okay. So I just want you to know that, heads up. A release of some sort, but likely you've already faced the most intense stuff already. If you want me to double check, if you want me to confirm, again, leave me your stuff below and I will take care of you the best I can. So I started talking about the middle of March because Mercury is in Taurus, but it did a retrograde and it started in April, but it finishes retrograding mid-month here. And oddly enough, it finishes retrograding on the 15th of March. Right, the number 15 comes up again. Now, this is a big deal, and it's all about reevaluating my finances. Again, it's not just money, though. It's Taurus. So it's Earth. So it's valuing the Earth, right? It's all climate change in the news, and you thinking about the climate, you thinking about who you value and what you need in your creature comforts, your water, your food, right? And really evaluating the quality of those things. Creature comforts, keep that in mind. Who in your world helps establish and helps maintain what you need to feel comforted. Remember, Taurus is the 5 senses: smell, taste, touch, what you see and what you hear. A very sensitive sign. Okay. Most people don't talk about Taurus energy as being psychic, but it is. And that's what that's how Scorpio energy gets its, not that Scorpio's not psychic. It's got Pluto and Pluto just knows shit. Okay. It's got that soul memory, but Taurus has that Mercury energy. Taurus has the Mercury, which is messenger of the gods. Okay. And so you have the ability to operate and oscillate in your Scorpio energy and in your Taurus energy. And so do Taurians. Okay. They have the ability to go back and forth because you guys operate on that same line of energy. So understanding that about yourself, you may realize there are things that you know about people or things that you just know that you probably shouldn't verbalize and vocalize. And so I will say that is an area where we can say Scorpio is secretive. And it's not about, oh, I got to keep secrets from these people. It's about, do you really want to know what I know? Because I know shit that people didn't tell me. Do you want to know that? And it's not your business either, right? And those people that I know these things about them, that wouldn't be really cool of me to share shit that I happen to know about them because I just happen to know it. They didn't tell it to me in confidence. And so how would that look? So I do. I get angry when people call Scorpios secretive because that word has such a negative connotation attached to it. And it's not, obviously there are people who walk around who are secretive, but they're not all Scorpios, right? Don't just paint Scorpio with this gigantic brush where every Scorpio is this secretive, sneaky almost, because that's kind of the word that comes in next. Oh, they're secretive, they're sneaky, they're creepy, and it's just like, let's be realistic here. Speaking with someone who has a lot of those energies, I understand shit that you are not at liberty to share, period. Okay? And so I just want you to know, Scorpio, I understand that. And sometimes that's all we need is to feel validated. And so I want to be able to at least give you that. Okay. Mercury values in the sign of Taurus. We're in the mid part of the month, and I want you to know that Mercury is not out of its shadow zone. Okay. Halfway through the month of May, I keep looking at my calendar for you, not calendar, but all my notes. Halfway through the month of May, Mercury is at 5 degrees and 15 minutes in Taurus. And this is where it began. This was the beginning of the shadow zone. So we have to wait until this Mercury gets back to 16 degrees of Taurus. And then we can make a decision about our values, about who we value, right? So if you have to sign paperwork, like if you have to do taxes, right? It's tax season. If you have to do taxes, make sure you're getting another pair of eyes and ears to look over your paperwork, to check behind you, someone you trust, or maybe you have to pay somebody, okay? Because what happens when we're Mercury retrograding, it automatically lets us know something was forgotten, something was overlooked, there was a piece of information missing. That's just an automatic. That's just the way it happens, which is why the recommendation is to never do anything that forces you to sign the dotted line or a contract until after we get out of the shadow zone, and that's 16 degrees of Taurus. So if you've got your chart, you can look that up, and you can also figure that out. Again, if you want more questions, you want me to go a little bit further on that for you, just reach out to me and I can help you out. The last thing I'm going to end this video up with is the latter part of the month. It's not really the latter part. It's like May 19th. We have a new moon, a new beginning, and it's in the opposite of you, Taurus. It's in Taurus, so a new beginning with our values. So you see what I'm saying? We feel like we got all the information. Mercury's done retrograding, even though it's not out of its shadow zone. We're having a new moon in Taurus, and it's like, oh, I have this new value. So remember, Taurus energy, Venus rules this, right? Venus is the ruler. So much Venus and Mars activity, because Mars is over here, Venus is over here. So much Venus and Mars. And what happens when Venus and Mars get together? They can make a baby, right? They can have fun, you know, they can, have a lot of good times together, masculine and feminine energy. This is regardless of your identity of when you were born. Everybody has like masculine and feminine energy. So it really just comes down to recognizing the duality of your being, basically, the duality of all the degrees of your being, and understanding our masculine traits and our feminine traits. And that's good, because then we become more balanced. Okay. So Venus is saying, right, we just had to release a whole bunch of stuff. And so we had to acknowledge it. And Venus is saying, I'm a big girl. I was able to do all of that. And I'm embracing that, as they say, warts and all. Right? Embrace who you are, your wounds, your past, warts and all, and understand there's new value about who you are and yourself. Okay. So it can have to do with money in the bank. It can have to do with finances, whatever you consider of a value, and your creature comforts, right? Food, water, smells, taste, touch. So the textiles, beauty is a big deal. Beauty. Yeah, the beauty industry, I imagine, is really going through a major change for people who are into that for their work, whether it's hair and makeup or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm thinking there's a big thing here. Truth is a big deal, because Pluto ruling Scorpio in that beginning and that ending at the beginning of the month. So this is in your 7th house. I already talked about it. Your 7th house, right? Your 7th house, relationships, significant one-on-one relationship. Who you love, what you love, who you value, who are you willing to compromise for? Who are you willing to compromise for? It can be business partnerships. Taurus energy. Yeah, absolutely some business partnerships. And if you haven't had relationships like that yet, because many times when we're Taurus energy and it's Venus, it's all about, on a really, when we're young, we're just all about, I need to eat, right? Because that's it's that young need energy, that young, how am I comforted? Think about when mom and the baby, the baby needed to be rocked to sleep. The baby first had to be fed and changed the pamper and washed, right? So it's kind of basic. It's the basics, right? But as it grows up, it's like, oh, I can cook my own food. I have these different tastes now. And then it starts getting into clothing and fashion, and maybe using makeup, and then maybe recognizing another part of its identity, and maybe even switching that up a little bit, right? And so it really embraces the masculine side sometimes, right, as well as the feminine side. But when we go even higher, it could be in finance and business, right? So this is a time where we're really pushing the degrees. We're really bending the energy, and that's really what we all came to do. We all have these charts that give us the inclinations, but we're not supposed to live exactly as our charts show. A chart of someone who's really living is going to be really hard for me to be able to predict. Not necessarily to read, but they may look at me and they would say, I see you say it's this, but this is what I've done with that energy. And that's wonderful. That's actually really good news, because an astrologer, you're basically talking about things that have been typical. because we're talking, it's a general reading, right? So you really are learning to bend your energy, and it's by what you value and what you value in a partnership. So it's Taurus, so creature comforts, it's material. It wants simple harmony and beauty. Venus words, harmony, beauty, and keeping things simple, but it likes quality. Don't give me any of that cheap shit. I don't have to have a lot. And you know, a younger Taurus might have been like all about the quantity, right? But the more mature Taurus is more about the quality. Okay. I don't need a lot, but what I got, it's good stuff and it's mine. You follow? And they're going to be a minimalist because they love the earth. You see? So that's partnership energy for you, which tells us a lot about who your partner is going to look like and what their traits, everything I've just described about that seventh house. That's a partner, feminine energy, someone who's not too assertive. Okay. A new beginning. And that new beginning is at 28 degrees in Taurus energy, 28 degrees, a very high degree, which means likely very mature energy, which means it's operating on the more mature level of some of those Taurus keywords I gave you. Again, you got any questions, you got any concerns, just comment to me and I'll help you out, Scorpio, in any way that I can. But remember, this is a new moon, so it can be a new beginning for partnerships. And only you can tell me what kind of partnerships those are going to be. And I would love, love, love to hear about that. So thank you and enjoy your May 2023. Bye-bye. Below the video, I'll have all the degrees for those of you who like to pay attention to the degrees in your chart. Again, if you don't know and you want to know, just comment below.